Hello and welcome to The Point. The focus tonight is back on serious politics and not on partisan tutu meme. With just 2 days to go before the voting begins, the issues in contention are concerns of substance. Later in part 2, in the wake of the BJP charge sheet, we shall compare the track record of the UPA with that of the NDA. But first, we'll examine the Aam Aadmi Party manifesto. Is the alternative the party offers the answer India needs? And let me add, both of these are subjects that should be at the top of your mind as we all get ready for voting, which starts on Monday. Late yesterday evening, the Aam Aadmi Party released its manifesto. It's a 26-page document that conveys an approach to politics, governance and justice that is markedly different to anything we've seen before. But the key question is it an answer to India's problems or simply high on intent and rhetoric but low on policies and details? With me to provide the answer is one of the most prominent members of the Aam Aadmi Party, Prashant Bhushan. Prashant Bhushan, your manifesto says the Aam Aadmi Party is here to change the rules of the game, rewrite the politics of this country, transform the relationship between the government and the people, and make the government truly of the people. Does this mean it's not just change that you want, but a complete transformation of the way India functions?
Absolutely. You see, the Aam Aadmi Party has not come merely to provide an honest government. It has come to provide systemic reforms in our democracy itself, in our electoral system, in our judiciary, in our policing, as well as in our administrative systems. The basic thing is that power must vest always with the people, who should have the power to decide, to take their own decisions, decide their own policies, and even occasionally their own laws.
Now, in fact, the most striking aspect, if I can just interrupt there, of the change you want is what you call your concept of Swaraj, under which, as you say, people will make the decisions and elected representatives will then implement them. But the problem is this sort of Athenian-style democracy where all decisions are made by the actual people themselves feasible and practical in the complicated and complex world of the 21st century?
It's entirely feasible and practical. You see, this idea of Gram Sabhas and Mohalla Sabhas, that is decentralized direct democracy at the local level, this has been practiced in many countries. And at a higher level, the people can participate in decision making, policy making and even law making through a system of initiatives and referendums. That's also practiced in most democratic countries.
But in no country the size of India, which is over 1 billion. Let me give you a couple of examples why people are worried about this devolution of power to Gram Sabhas and Mohalla Sabhas. For instance, in your manifesto you say these Sabhas will decide where roads will be laid. That's a specific example you offer. Now, as you know, a road passes through multiple Sabha territories. What happens if one Mohalla Sabha wants a road, but the adjoining Mohalla Sabhas don't want it where the first Sabha wants it? You suddenly got a problem on your hands.
No, you see, there are issues which are totally local in nature, which affect only one particular Gram Sabha or a Mohalla Sabha. Those have to be decided by the Gram Sabhas or the Mohalla Sabhas. But there are issues which cut across several Gram Sabhas or several Mohalla Sabhas, in which case the decision has to be taken at the next higher level, whether it is the level of the ward or whether it is the level of the district, whatever is decided to be the next higher level, that's where the decision will be taken.
Except even that seems to be contradicted by another example that I'm taking from your manifesto. You say the police will be accountable to Gram Sabha and Mohalla Sabhas. Now, in a city like Delhi or Bombay, there are likely to be perhaps 100 or more Mohalla Sabhas. So if you're accountable to every single Mohalla Sabha, the city's police will be simply crippled by that one fact.
No, no, no. The local police, the idea is that the local administration, which is supposed to be the local administrative machinery, that should be accountable to the local Mohalla Sabha or to the local Gram Sabha. But of course, the police at the higher level will be accountable to the people as a whole, meaning It will be accountable to the government, but if the people want to interfere through a system of initiatives and referendums,
Mr. Bhushan,
they can.
Mr. Bhushan, you're ending up with conflicting authority over the police. If at the local level the SHO is accountable to the Mohalla Sabha, but above him the commissioner is accountable to the chief minister, then suddenly you have multiple levels of accountability which will vitiate not just discipline and authority within the police force, but actually at the end of the day, it will also vitiate and undermine proper accountability. You're confusing accountability rather than enhancing it.
No, no, there is no confusion at all. It can be perfectly implemented. There should be no difficulty in implementing that. However, since it's a new concept, we will have to put it in place and iron out any difficulties that we come across. It's a new concept in India, but it's workable and it's working in many other countries.
Yes, but those are much smaller countries. You're being very honest to me when you say this is a new concept and you'll iron out the difficulties. The problem is the difficulties might be insuperable. Let me give you one more example. You say that beneficiaries of government schemes such as widow pensions and old age pensions should be decided by the Gram Sabha. Why? An army officer's widow gets a pension because of her husband's service. So the army or the government that controls the army should decide, not the Gram Sabha.
You see, the idea is that the local people know best as to who is eligible, who is not eligible. For example, giving birth certificates, death certificates, etc. Why should these not be done by the local people? Because they are in the best position to know. But
I'm not talking about birth and death certificates. I'm talking about widow pensions and old age pensions, because those again are specific examples. Now, a widow's pension that is given to an officer or a soldier's widow is determined by the army or the government, not the Gram Sabha. So why should the Gram Sabha have any say in the matter?
You see, they know whether this person has been in the army, whether he is eligible or not.
No, forgive me. The army knows whether the person has been in the army.
Position.
Surely the army is the authority to decide who served in the army, not a Gram Sabha.
See, today we are seeing a lot of corruption at the higher levels because the people have no say. This kind of representative democracy has led us to a situation where enormous corruption thrives because the people who are in a position to know and who are the real stakeholders have no say in these decisions.
But forgive me, you're not actually ending corruption by making Gram Sabha somehow the authority that determines who gets a widow's pension. The Gram Sabha could end up and even dispute the fact that the woman is a serving soldier's widow. And you'll have multiple confusion then if they start disputing that. At the end of the day, the army has a system which you shouldn't interfere in.
No, the army has a system, but there should be a check at the local level to ensure that corruption at the army level is checked by the people here. So therefore, I am not saying that the army has no role in the matter, but I am saying that the local people should also play a role in the matter.
All right.
And therefore, this will act as a check on the corruption that often takes place at a higher level when ineligible people are given pensions or ineligible people are given various government benefits.
I'm not sure.
The local people have no say over it.
I'm not sure whether war widows are ineligible people getting pensions, but let's leave that aside. What worries me is the final position you take on Gram Sabhas and Mohalla Sabhas. You say eventually, in due course, Gram Sabhas and Mohalla Sabhas must participate in the process of legislation. Now, already our parliament is very slow, some would say actually ineffective in passing legislation. If suddenly Gram Sabhas and Mohalla Sabhas, and there could be thousands of them in the country, have to participate in the process of passing legislation, you're not only adding to the delays, but you're adding considerably to the difficulty of passing legislation. You're going to make legislative functioning of government virtually impossible.
No, what we are saying is that the normal system of passing laws will continue through parliament or through the whatever the state legislatures or parliament at the appropriate level. However, the people would have the right to veto any legislation or to push for any legislation through a system of initiatives and referendums, which means that if a sufficient, suppose for example on this Jan Lokpal bill, if a 1% or 2% of the country's population signed a petition that we want the Jan Lokpal bill, that would be put to a national referendum, and if the majority of the people agree with that, that should be made law, and that would supersede the...
But you could end up devising a system where absolutely everything is put to referendums, because a small percentage of Gram Sabhas or Mohalla Sabhas or people voicing their opinion through Gram Sabhas and Mohalla Sabhas want a referendum. I mean, once again, you could cripple India just because you believe you're being democratic, but actually what you're doing is creating obstacles to legislation.
Actually, this system of initiatives and referendums is in place in most democratic countries in the world, which gives an important say to the people directly.
You're talking about Switzerland, a small country of 7 to 10 million.
Even in the US, even in most countries of Europe, etc., there is a system of initiatives and referendums in most democratic countries. There are only 3 or 4 democratic countries in the world which do not have any system of initiatives and referendums, and India is one of them.
All right, let's leave this issue as one that the audience need to decide about. I've aired with you what I think are the problems and concerns. You've given your answers. Let me then come to an issue that is perhaps the fundamental basic challenge most Indians think the government faces today, and I'm talking, of course, about the economy. Growth has fallen below 5%, inflation is substantially and rigidly above 6%, and honestly, investors are shying away. And yet, what is it that the Aap Aadmi Party manifesto says? It says, and I'm quoting, AAP's idea of development is in harmony with the needs, skills, resources and aspirations of the common man. And then you add, AAP's policies aim to empower every citizen to attain the highest level of fulfillment across the hierarchy of needs. Now, I put it to you, that's moral theorizing rather than practical economic thinking. What you're offering is high-flown rhetoric rather than well-worked-out solutions.
Well, broadly, the Aam Aadmi Party believes that economic policies should not be made merely on the basis of projections of GDP growth. They should rather be made on the basis of projections of whether they will generate employment, what kind of impact they would have on the people,
GDP
what kind of impact they would have on the environment.
GDP growth doesn't feature as a phrase or even as a concept in your manifesto. It's totally missing.
If you look at our manifesto, we are saying that all economic policies have to be tailored in order to see their impacts on the people as a whole, on equity, on employment, as well as on the ecology and environment.
Permit me to quote
and on
from
that
your
basis
manifesto.
we say, just 1 second, we say that businesses need to be encouraged. We are not against private enterprise at all. We want to encourage private enterprise, but we want to ensure that these private enterprises can function in an honest environment.
Well,
today the problem that we are seeing is...
Let me interrupt you there, because I want to go back to your manifesto. You mentioned a moment ago that central to your manifesto was job creation. Now, here's a sentence from your manifesto. Job creation shall be the primary purpose of the economic policies of AAP. The problem is, beyond saying that, you actually haven't defined what those policies are. You've given absolutely no details on how jobs will be created beyond saying that it's your intent to create jobs. And all you're doing is to ask people to accept intent as if intent was sufficient, and it's not. Where is the actual policy? Where are the details? That's missing.
No, in fact, there is a long section on economic policy, on economy and ecology, in fact. In fact, sections 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
9 to 17, I've read it in detail. That's why I'm asking you. It's language shorn of policy content. It's intent rather than content.
So let's understand. We say that the main thing which is holding up honest business and honest enterprise in this country is this rampant corruption that we are seeing. if we are able to control this rampant corruption, we can unleash entrepreneurial energy which will generate jobs.
But do you
Apart from that, we feel...
Mr. Bhushan, I'm interrupting you because do you know what you're actually saying? What you're saying in answer to my questions,
Yes.
which is that specific details are missing, your reply is that actually our focus is to control corruption. Once corruption is controlled, the economy will function, business will grow, jobs will be created. That's not actually how economies work.
It's not merely controlling corruption. We are saying that our emphasis will be on small scale industries. Our emphasis will be on agriculture to ensure that agriculture prospers.
But you know, beyond saying that's what your emphasis is, you haven't given details of what that emphasis will amount to. That's what I'm saying. That, you know, let me put it like this. It's high-flown intent, it's language, but what's missing is the actual policies and the details. Let me put it a little differently. The burger is missing. What you've offered the audience is the tomato ketchup.
You see, the details, every detail cannot be put in the manifesto. If we had put all the details in the manifesto, it would have been 80 pages long. Besides, we are saying that all these details will be worked out in consultation with experts as well as in consultation with the people.
No, let me give you an example.
We have given our broad policy
let me give you an example. Let me give you an example.
That our economic policies are substantially different from those of the BJP and the Congress.
Mr. Bhushan,
which talk about GDP growth as their only economic policy objective.
No, let me interrupt and tell you why. Let me tell you why the absence of detail actually vitiates your manifesto when it comes to economic policy. For instance, you say, and I'm quoting, government should not be in the business of running business. Practically everyone these days would agree with you. But there's not a single example of a business you've given which you think government should withdraw from. Now, surely there, illustratively, so that the audience understands, you should have mentioned the sort of businesses you should get out of. Or another example, you say simplifying rules and regulations will boost growth. But you don't give a single example of the sort of rule and regulation that's holding up growth, which you want to simplify or eliminate. Again, giving examples is essential because it shows people in what direction your thinking will concretize. Otherwise, it's just generalization, nothing more.
Okay, so when we say that government should not be in the business of business, we are saying that other than those areas which are monopolistic in nature, or that is by very nature if they are monopolistic, or other than those areas where the people need to be subsidized, such as education, healthcare, etc., the government need not be in those areas, or public sector need not be in those areas which are amenable to free competition and where subsidies are not required for the people, which are not supplying essential services.
Let me
other than these areas, the government need not be in business.
Well,
so that makes this position clear.
Only because I've questioned you at considerable length and got that answer out from you, but others who simply read your manifesto and don't have the capacity or the opportunity to question you would be left perplexed by the silence in terms of specifics, in terms of details. One last question before I end. The problem is, on economic policy, where you do go into details, the details you actually provide end up being worrying rather than reassuring. For instance, your manifesto says that the minimum support price for crops should be 50% more than the real input cost. And then you add that the MSP will be extended to 25 additional crops, including things like pulses and oilseeds. And I put it to you that that will have an enormous inflationary impact, and that will hit the Aam Aadmi, in whose name you formed your party, more than anyone else. So here the details actually work against the very interest of the Aam Aadmi, for whom you seem to be creating this manifesto.
So who is the Aam Aadmi according to you, Karan? Are the agriculturists who constitute, or the rural economy which constitutes about still 2/3 of our population, are they not the Aam Aadmi?
Everyone is an Aam Aadmi, whether you produce or not, and consumers will suffer from inflation. And 50% increases in MSP will mean huge inflation. Your Aam Aadmi will suffer.
No.
No? You disagree?
No. If some government subsidies need to be provided there, then they will have to be provided, but you can't allow a situation where the agriculturist in this country is forced to commit suicides, where 300,000 farmers have committed suicide because they are not even getting their input costs.
All right.
You have to provide them. This is an essential sector of the economy on which about 65% people are dependent, apart from the fact that they are growing all the food for this country.
Mr. Bhushan, I'll leave you with that answer. Let that be your response to the questions I've raised. Once again, it's only fair that the people should have a chance to make up their mind. I've raised the questions, pointed out what I believe are the anomalies, if not the contradictions. Let the audience decide. My thanks to you for coming and sparing time to us.